Well, good morning, everybody. This is the Executive Committee, Volusia-Flagler TPO Executive Committee. I call this meeting to order. It's 9:02. We're in the conference room of the Volusia-Flagler TPO offices. Please call the roll. Here.
Councilmember Foley.
Here.
Councilmember Robbins.
Here.
Mayor Cloudman.
Here.
Vice Mayor Gillis. Here. Commissioner Dance is excused. Councilmember Miller.
Very good. Thank you. Is there anybody online? No one is online. Okay. Let's get straight into our business items. Item A is to review and approve an expenditure to support the development of the fiscal year 2026-27 to fiscal year 2030-31 Transportation Improvement Program. These are the notes, and then I'll let Ms. Nickel explain. The TPO staff is requesting an expenditure approval for planning support services for the development of the fiscal year 26-27 to fiscal year 2030 to 31 Transportation Improvement Program. The support will include reviewing the current TIP document and providing appropriate updates to align the document with Volusia-Flagler 2050. Provide for consistency with adopted projects, incorporate new state policy directives, and revise the layout to make it more geographically appealing and user-friendly. Final scope and associated costs. Currently under negotiation, not to exceed $25,000. More details for us.
Yes, thank you. So moving into the development of our TIP this year, there are some changes that we need to make, especially to the narrative portion, to make sure it's consistent with what we recently adopted with our long-range transportation plan. So I've been working with the consultant that developed the long-range plan for us, asked them if they'd be able to provide some support, and they had indicated that they would. The challenge that we're dealing with right now is just the timing of when all of this needs to occur. We are still waiting on the final data dump that comes from FDOT of all of the projects. That's anticipated to come within the next week. But we have to have a draft prepared and turned around by May. So if I wait until we get that information to be able to put together a formal scope and final fee estimate, it'll be too late for them to work on it. So the executive committee does have the authority to approve expenditures up to $25,000 per the TPO bylaws. I did speak with the consultants, and again, there's some unknown in there, but they're confident that they can do the work that I need within that $25,000 budget. We do have consultant support budgeted within our current UPWP for development of the TIP for $25,000. So it's already budgeted within our current UPWP, and we did not deob that amount when we processed the deob last month.
Okay. Questions? Well, it sounds like everything's covered. I mean, the money is already there. It'll be less than $25,000, which is already available for that. Need a motion to approve, please. Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. It's easy. Item B is to review and recommend approval of the fiscal year 26-27 TPO operating budget. The narrative is each year, TPO staff develops a recommended operating budget for the upcoming fiscal year. The draft fiscal year 26-27 budget, which you currently have in front of you, is being finalized and will be provided under a separate cover.
Yes, thank you. So this is another item that is also tied to some of the other work that we're doing at the TPO with regards to developing our new UPWP. Again, there's a budget component to that. So that does tie into our operating budget. They are not one and the same, as the budget only accounts for our federal funds. This budget accounts for all of the funds that we receive, whether it's federal, local, and state. So they are different in a little bit of expenditures, but they are related together. And so our current UPWP is under review. I just received comments yesterday from FDOT on that, so we'll be finalizing that and bringing that for adoption in April. But since we've already had to go through the budget exercise, we wanted to bring the budget for next year for our operating budget for review. Typically, we do this in May and June, but we wanted to move it ahead and do it in April and May, so it aligns with some of the other work that we're doing. So to go through, I know a lot of you have seen this from last year, kind of the format that we use. Our budget is pretty steady from year to year. And again, this is our operating budget, so it doesn't account for any expenditures that we have for projects, member government. That all comes through a separate budget, and those are managed through FDOT and the local governments through VAP agreements. This does have consultant funding in there for special studies or support services, similar to from the TIP. We do have a line item of consultant fees as well as pass-through. We do pass-through funds through to some of our other agencies, such as Bike Walk Central Florida, and all those are kind of lumped together in the consultant services special studies. So I'm going to go through kind of the handout in front of you. And then in addition, I know last year when we presented the budget, there was a request to kind of look at where we are fiscal year to date with our current budget. So that's that separate sheet that you have with the gray. And this is basically a replica of the treasurer's report that was presented in last month's or last week's board meeting agenda. But it kind of gives you an idea of how we've spent the funds. So far, we are 66.67% through the year. So that column on the right kind of lines up with kind of shows how much of the budget we've spent down in a percentage wise. But on the budget itself for next year, the way we break it down, the first 3 line items really identify the revenues that we receive. So we have federal, state, and local funds. The federal funds are our PL dollars or our planning funds, as well as any SU funds that we flex over for special studies. The state funds are the funds that we receive to support our transportation disadvantage program. That's one grant that we receive for that. Those funds are an estimate at this time, as we don't receive those final dollar amounts until June. But it's typically right around the $36,000 line. And then the local funds are a combination of our local assessment, any local match that we collect for our feasibility studies, and then any interest income that we have make up the local fund category. So in the first column there, we show what our approved budget is for our current budget, and then what the proposed fiscal year 27 budget is. One thing to point out is the approved budget is the budget, the current budget with only one amendment that has been passed. Last week, we approved a deobligation that has not been reflected in the current budget yet. So within that current budget of federal funds, we deobligated a little over $1.4 million of federal funds. So that would be adjusted in the approved column. Once that gets finalized, we will have a budget amendment on the board agenda later this month. So we'll be able to true that up. So while that's showing a negative decrease now, that'll actually be a positive in terms of the new budget. And then moving down into the expenditure category, our categories pretty much remain the same. We did have some special expenses this last fiscal year, especially with regard to build out of this space and the conference room. We installed a new server, so some of those expenses are going to be coming out. We won't have those anymore, but generally our expenses are pretty consistent from year to year. The first 2 line items deal with our personnel, and that's the salaries as well as the fringe benefits. And there is some additional backup in the packet on the salaries and the fringe and the different amounts for those. But the salaries do represent a 3% cost of living adjustment to the staff positions here. And then any associated changes to the fringe benefits. We do have, we participate in FRS, so the Florida Retirement System. So the contribution to that, the percentage, we've kept the same contribution rate, but the amount does change because of the change in the salaries as well. The next line item is the consultant services. So pretty much what we do is once we complete the budget for all of our known operating expenses, anything we have left over, we put in the consultant and line item, and that allows us to be able to, do the special studies. This is, majority of this is where that de-obligation amount will come out of. So while it's showing a decrease over current year to propose, that'll actually change to show a bit of an increase. Our travel expenses, we're proposing to keep that the same. The office expenses, there is a slight adjustment to include for the increased amount for rent, and that's per our lease agreement. So we had held it steady at 150 for the last 2 years. So this shows that next incremental increase. And then we also have a category for office expense, any miscellaneous. So anything outside of the normal rent, utilities, janitorial, falls under that category. With regards to the operating expenses, again, all of these are remaining. The biggest change is in the service charge. And so this category previously in our prior budget was called fees. And so you'll see that in this sheet. We didn't feel that really captured what that was. So it's service charges that we receive, whether it's bank charges. Last year, we did a budget amendment to add $20,000 to that to account for the work that needed to be done for the installation of the server, the installation of the AV system. So that's why you see a decrease there, is we don't need those fees or services anymore. And then the other line item that is changing here is under our network costs. So we do see an increase in our networking costs. So we've adjusted the budget accordingly. Down toward the bottom, where you see the change decrease in 2 line items. One of those is our capital outlay for equipment, furniture, computers. Last year, we did purchase equipment to fill this space, as well as new furniture within the offices, so we don't have that expense this coming year. And then the server replacement, that has been completed, so that expense will go away altogether. If there's any questions on this before I move on.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so first off, I want to applaud you on being 66% of the way through the year, and a lot of this looks really good in terms of where we are fiscal year to date. But I have some questions. I understand some expenses are very calculated, like salaries go out every paycheck, right? And rent goes out every month. And so where I'm struggling with some of the budgetary numbers is we're 66% of the way through the year, but we've only paid out 41% in salaries, 41% benefits. Why is there such a discrepancy there, such a large gap between those two? Because to me, they should be closer together. And that's just an example. I see the same thing with like printing. We've only used 5% of our printing, but we're 2/3 of the way through the year.
Right. So from the salary standpoint, we have budgeted for vacant positions. So that's the discrepancy there.
Okay.
And then the printing, that's a category that we carried through. I think the only thing we've printed this year is maybe our new business cards. We don't print like we used to. We used to, print summary or executive summaries of our LRTP, which we don't do anymore. It's now an online PDF portal. But we have just carried that through in case something comes up to where we do need to print. We do have that line item budgeted. We used to use almost all of our printing. We would have annual reports. We'd have to tell the TPO survey.
I remember the first year I was on here, it was like right on it.
So used to mail out the board packets. So.
Right, and we
Yep.
don't have all of that, so things have changed. And we haven't changed that amount. I mean, we feel comfortable having, $8,000 is a fairly small amount to our overall budget. In case there is something that we need to print or something that, with our outreach and activities, a lot of the stuff that Pam receives, that she uses, she gets for free. But if there's something that we want to put together for any of that and we need to print that, that's kind of like a placeholder that we have.
Yeah, and I'm not
That makes
necessarily
sense.
hung up on the printing. It's more just like you're so close in terms of budget from year over year here. It's really it's a good job done. It's just if I was looking at this from like 10,000 foot view, seeing 28% of expenditures against 66% of the year is like, well, maybe you could tighten the budget a little just because we're not spending the money anyway. But I mean, clearly that also is a testament to you being responsible with, the budget you've been given. So I'm always, I run my business, I over budget for expenses and I under budget for income. As long as you do that, it usually works out pretty well.
Works out pretty good.
Right. Well, and the other thing to keep in mind with that 28%, so the budget still includes that 1.4.
That's true.
So if you do take that out, that percentage is right around 45%.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully that, because this will get presented to the full board as well at some point, I believe, right?
Correct.
So hopefully you'll be able to recalculate that before the full board sees it, because I think that'll be the same question a couple of people on that board will ask. But otherwise, I'm good.
So I had a couple. Legal services, is it just because they bill annually, or is that kind of fallen through because of have they forgotten to bill us because of the changeover? Or?
Well, there has been some changeover, but we haven't, this fiscal year really had much of a need. I do have a meeting with her on Monday, so there are some things, so that's going to change.
Okay,
So a lot of that is just, it's an as needed,
Okay.
on
We don't pay a
call.
retainer or
No.
Okay. Okay.
No, and that stood out to me as well, because typically we do have certain expenditures, but we've had our legal counsel turn over the last year and a half, 3 different representations from
Right.
there. Yeah.
Okay.
And all the contracts work for this office space that you don't need that legal services for that.
Correct. It was very heavy when we were under the lease negotiations. And this is through February, so any expenditures since that have not been captured in here.
Let's do one more question here. Through the categories, conference, workshops, seminars, and educational professional development, seem very underused. And just curious, is that because we have mostly seasoned employees, or are we not providing opportunities for trainings or conferences or whatever?
We do provide opportunities. One of the challenges that we see with attendance, especially at like statewide or even national conferences, is the timing of them. We have a meeting every week. So sometimes it's very difficult, if a conference falls the 4th week of the month, which is a board meeting, it's very difficult to have attendance there. But we do encourage that, and we do allow, attendance at conferences, and it is utilized. I think some of it may be moving forward. It may be to our benefit to take a look at our meeting schedule. Instead of having the meetings spread out over the entire month, to give the opportunity for, more attendance at those conferences. And it's the same with, the travel expenses as well. And a lot of that has to do with that same as it's the inability to attend just because it falls on either a hard meeting for us, for staff to miss.
Okay.
Yeah, with all that many meetings, if we're meeting every week or 1 or 2 meetings every week, it's kind of hard to drop in a conference travel.
Sure.
Right. And our meetings are Wednesdays or Tuesdays. So
Right.
it's in the middle of the week too. So
Usually when the conferences are held.
exactly.
Yeah.
We're here last week and we're here again this week. Okay, yeah, no, I mean, I imagine there's more opportunities online now too, but I would think that planners have to get views and.
Yes, and Stephen does attend the statewide conference, the planning conference. This past year, it was local here at Daytona Beach, so he didn't have to, travel for that, and he was able to attend it. It happened. It was actually the week of the board meeting in September where we moved it to adopt our LRTP, but he was able to attend certain sessions outside of the meeting itself.
No queen size bed at the Fairmont Inn and Suites.
No, not really.
Sad.
Thank you.
All right. This all looks good. Both parts of it look good.
So the other pages within the packet, the second page really just kind of details the revenue sources a little bit further. So we do have our consolidated planning grant fund for fiscal year 27. So that's new money coming in, the 1,318,591. And then in addition to that, we have the 1,320,200 PL funds that we deobbed. Then we also have SU funds that we flex for special studies, and we use this primarily for feasibility studies. In our last year's budget, we also flexed SU to cover expenditures for our long-range transportation plan. So we have some of those funds that we deobbed, the 150 from the long-range transportation plan budget. So we'll have some additional funds to be able to do special studies. So those are the federal funds, just under $3 million. Then our state grants, again, this is an estimate, and we'll adjust it once we know what that final dollar amount. And then the local funds, we have a required local match on our feasibility studies for projects that are not on the state road system. Since we don't know which projects they're going to be yet, we just budget for all of them requiring that local match. Then we also show the interest income and then the member assessments. So that's kind of what makes up the revenue sources on that first page.
What does that interest income from?
We have a SBA account through Prime, so it's just, yeah.
Great. That's as good as you can get, say liquid.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah. So, we have our regular bank account that we use, to pay out and collect funds. And then whenever we have additional funds, Mariel does a good job at moving that over to SBA. In recent years, the interest rate was pretty good for us. We've seen it decline a bit, but we're able to maintain. And then when we move into, if we're doing like a large consultant project where we receiving hefty invoices, because we have to carry our expenses for about 3 months, then we're able to, utilize some of those funds to cover that until we get reimbursed, and then we can move it back. So it just provides that backup. And that was really a result, having those funds that we can keep in a separate account like that is a result of the local assessments that we've collected over the years, and that provides us with the ability to float our program for 3 months. The next page does a little bit of detail of kind of the salaries, breaks down the salary costs, and then the fringe, which is broken down to our health insurance, our retirement, and our life, and kind of shows a little bit of the subtotals. We currently, with our health insurance, we are on the Volusia County group plan. So whatever health insurance rates that they negotiate, those are the rates that we use for. So we do assume a 5% increase, and that does occur at the end of the calendar year. Year over year, and we've seen about that amount, moving through. And then we also participate in life insurance through the county as well. So each staff member has a life insurance policy paid for by the TPO that's equal to 1 times their annual salary. This also does include contingency. for staff payout, for leave payouts, you know, if we do have an employee that leaves, a contingency to pay out any PTO, that balance that they have. And there's also a contingency in there that provides for reorganization or staffing or merit adjustments at the end of the year. So that provides flexibility for me to make any adjustments beyond the COLA adjustments. And then I'm sorry.
That's very
That's
nice.
good.
And then on the fourth page, that shows the updated TPO assessments. Based on, again, they're based on population and it's 10 cents per capita.
What we could do with that extra 12 cents. Actually, no.
$1.20.
And
It's $1.20. We had previously, a couple of years ago, talked about if it's under $5, I think was the dollar amount we sent. It's really not worth our time or
Right.
effort to invoice somebody for that amount.
Or it costs more to write and mail a check than it would be to
For us to
The actual
receive it and
assessment.
cash it, and yes.
Very good. I'd like to receive a motion to approve this 26-27 TPO operating budget.
So
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimously. Very good. Very good. That's a lot of work compiling that, so I appreciate you doing that, staying on top of it.
Well, I have to recognize Mary Olin, who's our accounting manager.
Very good, Mary.
Put all the work behind it.
I barely balanced my checkbook. Item C is to review and approve the March 4th, 2026 Executive Committee meeting minutes. They're provided for you in pages 3 through 5. Are there any changes or additions needed? If not, I need a motion for approval.
Second.
All in favor of approving the March 4th, 2026 Executive Committee meeting minutes, say aye. Aye. Okay. Now we get on to review and approval of the draft April 22, 2026 TPO board agenda. And it is in our packet.
Yes. So on the agenda this month, under the consent agenda, we have the normal reports. We also have an amendment to the budget to reflect removing those funds that we de-obbed last month. Then under the action items, we have a placeholder for a TIP amendment. DOT will run that report today. So it'll determine whether or not we do have a TIP amendment moving forward. We'll have the adoption of our UPWP. It is due to the state by May 15th. So we need to adopt it this month so we can submit it by that deadline. We did approve a draft back in February, submitted it to the state for review, received comments yesterday. Most of them were editorial or enhancement comments. So we're going through that and making any appropriate adjustments. It is still open for public comment through, looking at Pam here, the date 15th. Okay, through the 15th.
How many public comments do you receive on things like that?
Typically, we don't. We do receive comments through our committees because we do make presentations.
Sure.
But usually just the general public doesn't comment on. We haven't received
I
any.
mean, it's like our municipal, our city budget process. Nobody comments. Even though we have one of the highest millage rates in the county, nobody comments. So, but they do have that opportunity.
They
which
do,
is that's important.
Yes, it's a 30-day public review, and that's outlined in our public participation plan. So. And then we have two resolutions on here. One resolution, this is a request from the Florida Department of Transportation. And it's specific to the Deltona urbanized area. As you know, after the last census, the Deltona area, which covers Deltona, DeLand, Orange City, DeBary, that urbanized area, exceeded a population of 200,000. So it moved it into a different category for urbanized area, and there's transit funding, that filters through that. So FDOT has asked us for a resolution that designates FDOT as the designated recipient to receive those funds and then distribute those to the transit agencies appropriately through similar to like a call for projects that we have. It is the exact same way that it's done for the Daytona Beach, Port Orange, Palm Coast urban area. But because it's a new TMA, they didn't have a resolution on file from us, so they've requested that we provide one. They are currently administering the program now. We did have a meeting with Votran to see if they wanted to be the designated recipient, and they said no way. The amount of work that needed to be done, for that. Plus, they would also be submitting for these funds, so it could be seen as a conflict of interest.
Sure.
The other resolution on here is a resolution adopting the TPO travel policy. So we are not making changes to our TPO travel policy, but we don't have a resolution that formally adopts that. And so what has happened is the TPO reimburses employees at the federal rate for travel, for mileage and for meals. We have a written, and that's the policy in our handbook. We have a separate policy, standalone policy, was not adopted by resolution, but was presented to the board back in 2019 that states the TPO reimburses employees at the federal rate. However, we only ask for reimbursement to DOT at the state rate. So we make up the difference through local funds. We are allowed by statute to set our own rates and to ask for reimbursement for the full rates, as long as we have a resolution stating that. So this resolution is really just putting into practice, what we do in practice, formalizing it in a resolution. So that way, when we do reimburse through DOT, they're able to reimburse us through the federal grant, the full amount that we pay out, which is the federal rate. We don't have to split some of it between, the grant funding and then the balance through our local funding. So it's kind of a housekeeping manner. Again, we're not changing our travel policy or anything like that. It's just formalizing that we reimburse the federal rate and that we will ask for reimbursement through the grant at the federal rate. That's right, Kyle, right? That's what you need. Yeah.
That makes it clear.
So asking for reimbursement at the federal rate.
Yes.
So I'm good with that. I'm just curious, FDOT employees, do you get reimbursed at the federal rate or the state rate?
So I don't do a lot of travel or I don't know how we get reimbursed. So
Okay.
I don't have like that sort of position where I can get reimbursed.
Doesn't affect my decision here. I'm just
Yeah.
curious.
It's a significant difference in
Probably,
mileage. I
I
know
think the
that.
state rate, probably. That's because that's where this originated from, is conversations that we've had through our people.
I did have a question about have an option to rename the urbanized area. I think it should be.
What would you like to have,
I
Mr.
mean,
Mayor?
DeLand has,
Volusia urbanized area.
even that's better.
Well, that makes more sense than Deltona, because you wouldn't think of Deltona, Orange City,
They,
Lake Town,
I think they
DeLand.
typically go with the largest population.
right?
Yeah, well, the one on the East Coast is the Daytona Beach, Palm Coast, Port Orange urbanized area. they have 3 cities in there. It doesn't capture all of the cities that it covers, but I think,
True, true.
it's the 3 largest ones. So I'm not sure how they're named.
It wasn't a serious question.
But you're not the first person that's asked that, so.
Well, I do know when we first received that designation, maybe it was confusion or uneducated statement, but Deltona felt they were due all that money.
Oh, because they were named it, oh, and not being an inclusive network, yeah. Any other questions on the proposed agenda?
And then the only other item is a presentation of
I'm sorry.
the operating budget, and as presented here with the updates to remove the DDoS funds from,
Okay, so that'll be this with the revisions.
yes.
Sounds good. That's all good work. I need a motion to approve adopting the,
So moved.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay. Motion carries. I was looking on the wrong page. Sorry, that's what got me. The wrong agenda page. Couldn't find it on this
Trying to
one.
jump to the meeting in a couple of weeks, are you?
Okay. Any comments for us,
I don't have anything additional to add.
ladies and gentlemen? Comments, questions?
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say the same thing. I don't think Danny was at the meeting. I'm not sure, Charlotte, were you at the meeting last week? If you were, you heard this, so I'll just say it again for Danny. I'm going to be stepping down off the Flagler, the Volusia-Flagler TPO. Yeah. Denied. I've got a lot of things going on in life and a lot of moving parts, and my travel schedule, I got to looking at all the places I have to go this year. There's 0 chance I would make another meeting until September, and then after that, I don't know that I make another one until, the November, December time frame. And I just didn't think it's right for me to not only sit on the board, but also as a member of the executive committee. I think that sets a bad example to be. I think physical presence matters, and not being here is just not the right thing for me to do. And so because of that, I've decided to step down off of this. So we're gonna actually, we have our meeting next Tuesday. Gonna try to appoint. I'm gonna see if my alternate Tracy Grubbs wants to do it. If not, I know you've already kind of recommended Sean. I'm gonna certainly make note of that. And but I've enjoyed this, man. I really have. It's been great getting to work with all you guys and be a part of this. I've said it before. I think it's one of 2 or 3 of the most important boards you can serve on in our county. And it's been an honor to do it, especially as a vice chairman. And I'm going to miss working with you guys and seeing you every couple of weeks, but you never know. Maybe I'll just come sit in the room just when I am in town.
It's open to the public.
That's right.
Well, I just want to say thank you for your service. And I do understand that you as council member in Fort Orange, they have 2 meetings a month, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that makes it really difficult to attend 2 additional meetings in the month with your busy travel schedule. So I would just want to formally say thank you for your service. You have brought a fresh, young perspective to the board. We have much appreciated that.
No names, please.
And we have much appreciated that and appreciated your just your personality. So thank you for your service.
Well, thank you for the kind words.
On behalf of the board, I wish you the best going forward in your public service and in your music career and in your family life.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
And with that, I don't have any comments except to say I appreciate everyone's sacrifice in making it here today. We're done early, but it's still important work that we're doing, and I appreciate your willingness to do it. Thank you.